welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a highly concentrated, honestly brilliant strategic philosophy. It fits into just a few short sentences, but I'm telling you, it completely reframes how a company, a team, or heck, even just you as an individual, survives under pressure. It's all about strategic energy management. Okay, let's dive into this.
So here's the core question we all face. How exactly do organizations stay resilient? Just think about it for a second. When you see a company weather a massive storm, an economic downturn, a sudden market shift, maybe a brutal internal crisis, we usually look from the outside and assume, wow, they got incredibly lucky. We think they caught a fortunate break or just scrambled really, really well at the literal 11th hour. But the material we're looking at today paints a totally different picture. Listen, organizational survival, it's not about luck. No way. And it's definitely not about reactive, chaotic scrambling when things suddenly go south. It's a deliberate, proactive practice. And the entire foundation of that practice starts with a directive that sounds super simple, but is actually incredibly demanding.
Manage your energy. Let those three words sink in for a moment. Notice what it doesn't say. It doesn't say manage your time. It doesn't say manage your finances first. The absolute, non-negotiable foundation of any organizational strategy, according to our source, is energy. Why? Well, because an organization is a living, breathing entity made up of actual people. If your collective energy is depleted, scattered, or just completely burned out, your capacity to handle literally anything else drops to straight zero. You can't plan, you can't adapt, and you certainly can't survive a crisis if the foundational energy of your team is already running on fumes. This right here, this is step one.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it transitions us from that internal reality, managing your own energy, to confronting the brutal external reality of organizational life. This text forces us to look a fundamental truth right in the eye. Difficulties are absolutely inevitable. It's never a matter of if things are going to get tough, right? It's strictly a matter of when. The external environment is not some flat, smooth, predictable line. It's a cycle. And by actually recognizing the inevitability of that cycle, we stop playing the victim to circumstance and start becoming the masters of our own resilience. Let's break down this specific and, frankly, crucial phrase straight from the source text, cyclical rough patches. The authors could have easily just said problems or emergencies, right? But they didn't. They chose the word cyclical, and that is a massive distinction. Framing a downturn as cyclical means you are accepting it as an expected organizational reality. Think about the seasons. You don't walk outside in December and completely panic because it's snowing. Well, okay, maybe unless you live in Florida. You know winter comes every single year. It's just part of the cycle. By defining these difficult periods as cyclical rough patches, the text completely strips away the shock value. They are guaranteed to happen. And because they're guaranteed, they should never, ever be treated as a sudden, unpredictable surprise that sends everyone into a total panic. So we're left with this inherent tension. On one side, you have the chaotic, totally unavoidable nature of these cyclical rough patches. That's your external friction. But on the other side, you have forward planning. That's your steady, controlled internal response. And this brilliantly illustrates the perfect balance struck by our source text. You've got the utter chaos of the cycle, and you've got the total control of the plan. Look, you cannot stop the rough patches from arriving at your door, but you have absolute 100% control over the forward planning you put in place to actually meet them.
Okay, so we understand the internal foundation, which is our energy, and we clearly understand the external reality, which is that inevitable cyclical rough patch. So what's the actual action plan here? The text doesn't just diagnose the problem and leave us hanging. It hands us an explicit, proactive solution. Let's move to and see how this builds a literal blueprint for what a resilient organization actually does when they aren't actively putting out fires in a crisis.
Here is that proactive solution, laid out chronologically. Step 1. Anticipate cyclical rough patches. Step 2. Do forward planning. So the crucial point is that the mental act of anticipation absolutely must precede the logistical act of planning. Think about it. If you aren't actively looking ahead and anticipating that winter is coming, you're never going to bother chopping the firewood, right? You have to intellectually accept and anticipate that rough patch first. It's only then that the forward planning, gathering your resources, making that strategic pivot, safeguarding your team's energy, actually becomes possible. Anticipation is the trigger. Forward planning is the bullet.
Now, let's read the full excerpt together. Manage your energy, anticipate cyclical rough patches in your organization, and do forward planning. Hearing the complete philosophy out loud, especially after we spent the last few minutes totally deconstructing its parts, it really creates this profound aha moment. It's a perfectly closed loop of organizational resilience. Conserve and focus your internal power. Keep your eyes locked on the horizon for those inevitable storms. And, for goodness sakes, build the ship before the rain actually starts falling. It's incredibly concise, but it essentially packs an entire operational doctrine right there into 2 little sentences.
Which brings us right back to where we started, and quite frankly, directly to you. We've seen today that true resilience, it's not an accident. It's a robust structure built entirely on anticipation and planning. But remember, that whole structure rests squarely on that very first, vital command. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this question to really chew on. Whether you're running a massive global corporation, leading a tiny startup team, or honestly just managing your own daily life, are you managing your energy? Because if you aren't, you simply won't be ready for those rough patches, and your forward planning is never going to leave the drawing board. Start with your energy. Everything else follows. Thanks so much for joining me on The Explainer.